Sister Wives. This show has been going for 16 years. And when we met the family in 2010, everyone said they were a friendly group. Everyone was great. And all of them got along great with Kody. In the first season, Meri looked really sad and broken, and she even cried over whether she should stay with her family. The truth is, though, they claimed that they were all doing this out of love and that it was real. The truth, on the other hand, often takes a lot longer to come out. And lies spread a lot faster. They may go around the world many times before the truth is found. One of the hardest things about writing about this story is that I know all the lies that were told on the show and are still being told about it. And Meri Brown was on notes to self, which I will not be sharing any of the interview because the creator struck my channel when I tried to share about 10 seconds of an interview or 30 seconds of an interview a couple years ago. So I will be just paraphrasing what occurred. But she was on this channel with Melanie, who is the daughter of David Watson, the oldest daughter, and she was sitting down with her to talk about her experience. And Meri, in the very beginning of the talk, essentially said that even before the show started, she was basically deconstructing from the faith and wasn't sure that she even believed in it. She was already questioning going. That was 16 years ago. She was asked whether or not she was wearing her clothes or wore her garments. And Meri said that she wore her garments on the show for looks, but had stopped wearing her garments even before the show aired and went back and forth, but played the role on television. One of the things I've spoken about is a conversation that I know that someone I know had with Janelle during the season, that they were doing work with the polygamous kids and the kids that had been harmed and hurt in the world of polygamy, and the Browns didn't really accept that this was a part of their lives. It wasn't really a part of their world. They really did lie on television and say, that's not our experience. But it was their experience, right? They did have power within their lives, and they were all going through trauma in their own right. And the person told me that all of the women basically were like out the door. That was season 5, and they were basically just doing this and putting up appearances. And that at the time, Janelle was saving money, getting ready to leave Kody season 5. Meri was only in and out for the show season 5. And yet, for years on TLC, they've just been continuously playing this part that they were a family. Now, part of the reason why they kept up appearances was because it's difficult to leave. It's not easy to leave a thought system that you're in. And just because you're deconstructing doesn't necessarily mean that you have the courage to say that publicly. And then you also have your family, and there's pressure from the people around you. There's constantly gaslighting from the cult about keeping you there and there. But on this interview, Meri basically said that Kody's relationships with everyone was done when he met Robin. Everything else was basically just fake. When he met Robin, they were a couple. And instead of telling all of them that it was over, he just strung them all along. But none of their relationships were ever the same. Obviously, Robin and Kody were a monogamous pair basically from the beginning. Meri said that it hurt her feelings. It was heartbreaking to hear Robin call Kody her soulmate in the very first season. And she understood why she said it, but she said it didn't mean that it didn't hurt. She said Robin's allowed to have a soulmate. But also, Kody is a husband that has other wives, so he is supposed to be mindful of that. Very similar to the echo of what Christine Brown had said, that even though he had found a soulmate, he was not meant to treat them any differently. Okay? But he did. He did treat them differently. He abandoned all of them at that point, and they all just sort of chugged along and chugged along and chugged along and kept going fighting for this way of life. I think the hardest part, when I look back at how this all plays out, is that they all know essentially that when Robin joins, it's over. So they're all playing the part. They're all caught up in a contract. They're caught up in this thing where they have to play a role in a look of what it is when it's not. And during that time, even though the other 3 are essentially finding a way to leave, Kody's trying to keep them to stay for the money. Obviously. But during that time, they knew they were going to leave. And then they advocated for laws to legalize it, something they didn't even want to be in. They wanted this to be an infraction. They wanted it to be not a felony. They gathered. They went to protests. They did all of this advocacy work knowing full well that none of them wanted to live this way, and now many of them have left, and it's like, while they didn't directly contribute to the laws changing the show, absolutely changed the minds of people in Utah, and it gave people like Joe Darger the
space to be legitimized when he never should have been, in my opinion. And It's so frustrating because now it's like, I wonder if there's any regret threat to that. I can't blame the women. I understand how hard it is for them. But if she said she knew when Robin joined it was over. She doesn't know if Kody knew, but she thinks he does.
They were a monogamous couple, and they were never the same. She also admits something I've told you and suspected for years, is that she was asked whether or not she got to choose the other wives and what her say was. And Meri said that it's forced control. Coercive control. She knew she had a say, but she also knew she couldn't say no. So even if she wanted to say no, she couldn't, because the way that the system was built, she had to say yes. And if Kody wanted to bring someone in, she knew that if she said no, she would get in trouble, and she would be the wrong one, and it would be her fault. And so truly, there's no choice. There's no choice when you're in a coercive relationship, and there's no choice when you're in a coercive church that's directing what you do. And if you do say no, you get in trouble. So, you have to say yes. So, it's not really a yes because you want to, it's a yes because you have to. It's a yes because if you don't, you're going to go to hell. It's a yes if you don't, you're going to get punished. You might get hurt. You might lose rights. Whatever it is. So, it's not a choice. Which again, just sort of begs the question of everything that I've said for years on this stage is that none of this was a choice. And I specifically remember a couple years ago, Meri was yelling on her Instagram about how dumb how much she didn't like me. And she doesn't just stay because of heaven, and it's not true what I say about the family and all of this, and they spent so much time not liking me because I didn't agree with them about the legalization or the decriminalization of polygamy, and yet at the same time the hypocrisy of all of it is that they agree now. It's wild. Absolutely wild. This isn't about me. It's just odd. It's odd to hear them say this. I'm glad they're saying it. I'm happy they're saying it. I'm glad that she's acknowledging the coercive control of not having a choice with the wives, having to just go, along with whatever Kody wanted, having to deal with the complicated relationships in the family, having to navigate everything that happens on the show, having the receipts and the reminders of what Kody was doing. One of the things that she said changed for the family was that prior to the show, Kody could run to wife to wife to wife, and he could lie and they might not even know, right? So he could lie and say something happened or misrepresent what occurred to get out of something or to get his way to control. But what happened with the show, she said, was that once it was recorded on the show, they could see what he said to someone else. They could see whether or not he was lying to them. His ability to lie to them with secrecy and with the ability that no one would find out was gone. And so then, all of his lies were visible. And while he was playing the part of beautiful husband, and he was pretending like he was this great man, they could tell when he was lying. So his ability to lie and fool and pit them against each other was harder. And they couldn't ignore that he was lying to them. And that erodes trust, and it erodes confidence, and it erodes your, do I even want to be in this marriage anymore? He's lying to me. I mean, specifically lying to them about how he feels about Robin, lying to them about the divorce, lying to them about the houses, lying to them about moving when they can see on the show that there's a completely separate thing happening in another home that shows that it's a lie when he talks to them. So, Meri was already deconstructing when she left, or when the show started. Meri had to agree to have him take other wives, or she felt like she would get in trouble. Meri wasn't always comfortable with the choice of each wife, and didn't necessarily want them to come into the family, but couldn't say no. Meri acknowledges that she was brainwashed, that she was deceived by her religion, and she doesn't believe in it at all anymore. She admits that the system is toxic, and she has trauma, and she's healing from it, and trying to recover from it. And I think the most powerful component of Meri acknowledging that she didn't have a choice and that she felt like she had to live this way or else she would get in trouble not only from the leaders at her church by her family from Kody, and she would face spiritual consequences obviously, and that she didn't always want women to join the family, and she didn't want to necessarily be a plural wife, would explain the incredibly complicated dynamic she had every time Kody would bring someone in, and then having to also deal with the children that Kody had with other women that she didn't want in her family, that she didn't want to be there, that she had to deal with, because Kody said she had to deal with them. And it makes me better understand it doesn't make it right if she was lashing out and angry and irritated. I mean, she's being abused to a degree that she does not feel like she can say no. She does not want these women there. And she feels like if she says no, the everything in her life is going to go. I mean, the fear that she was living in because of that. The amount of trauma she had to endure because she could not say no. And that when she did say no, she lost access to Kody. She got in trouble with him. She got in trouble with the church. She got in trouble with her family. It just makes me understand this is why she didn't have great relationships with these people. She didn't want them there, and she was being forced and coerced to be there by an abusive man and an abusive faith. And I don't think it's going to erase some of the trauma maybe the kids have experienced or the trauma that's gone back and forth in this family, but at least saying that out loud, I mean, that's such a powerful thing to say. I didn't choose this and I didn't want this, and she finally said it. And I'm really glad that she's being honest about that. It takes so much, and I know that her friends that really gather behind her care about her and care about her journey and care about her healing. And I know there's a lot of talk about Meri having hurt the children and all these allegations about the women themselves not being, present or good parents, maybe abusive. That's a word that gets thrown around. Neglectful or forcing their children to grow up in a home where their dad is running from person to person to person, which some people just find morally reprehensible in and of itself. And that they're staying there because of Kody and wanting him. And I think once the show started, they were staying for the money, and because of it's hard to leave a cult. But what she said towards the end of the talk is that she's writing a book. She's in the process right now of writing a book, a tell, all about her journey, about her life, about her story. So, she will have her own book coming out. It hasn't been properly announced by a publisher. She didn't say what publisher. She just said she's currently in the process of writing her book. She also said she did not read Christine's book. And she recognized that every single person in the family would have a very different experience and would have a very different point of view. And one thing that they did talk about was that as a first wife, the heartbreak it is when your husband takes their first wife and then having to do it again and again and again, and how that played and messed up her mind and messed up her life and messed up her worth. It's hard to know, what she's going to say and what she's not going to say in her book. There's still this out, they're still under contract with TLC. She made that clear. So there's obviously some sort of season in the works, and they're limited to a degree of what they can say and what they can't say, and they have to be extremely mindful about their public image and whether or not people are still going to support them after they've made these confessions. I don't know that she'll be throwing shade or being rude or mean to anyone. Even in this interview, she didn't want to say anything really negative about anyone. I mean, she honestly, it sounds like just wants to move on and be mindful that yes, she was hurt by people in the system, but she doesn't know that they were intentionally trying to do it or if it was just survival and just the circumstances that they found themselves in. She doesn't like Kody. That's clear. And she doesn't appreciate what he put her through, but she gives him grace, and she also gives Robin grace because she understands the position that Robin's in right now, where she feels like she has to defend her husband or else she'll get in trouble, because even though Kody's in a monogamous relationship, his personality has not changed. So Meri has the interview is note to self, and you've probably already seen parts of it. She's writing a book. There's a book coming out. I have no idea what's coming in the book. She's deconstructing. She's healing through the process. She's moving forward in her life. She's dating. She actually just started a speed dating little company that does events with Jen, and they just held their first one to just get people together and, connect and have fun. And she just wants to start over and just have a new life. But she doesn't know what that looks like. She just knows she doesn't want what she had, and she's not ready to commit to anything until she knows she's ready to commit. She's taking her time. So Meri wasn't down with the wives joining the family, but she couldn't say no. Meri was living in forced control. Kody left them the minute he met Robin, and she was already dissecting before the show started. And it took her all that time to finally leave. I mean, talk about how dominating and how serious the brainwashing is, that it takes that long to finally. So, what are your thoughts? You can check out her video on Notes to Self, and if you have thoughts, opinions, let me know in the comments. Alright, before you go, make sure to hit the thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, besties.